So welcome everyone. My name is Bree Reynolds and I'm the Director of Content and Social Media at FlexJobs. And today's webinar is how to use social media in your job search. We are really excited to have Joshua Waldman as our guest expert and presenter today. And I will do a little bit of introduction about Joshua and let you get to know him. But first I just wanted to go over some housekeeping items. To ask a question throughout the webinar, you feel free to use the questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll be moderating those throughout, and we'll either reply to you there, or we're going to have a Q&A at the end where we'll ask or answer as many questions as possible. So if you have a question, just type it into that box, and we'll get to those, as many of them as we can. Also today, you may have seen one lucky attendee of the webinar was going to win a free professionally written LinkedIn profile by Joshua Waldman, which is a value of $300. The catch is that the winner has to stay until the end of the webinar. So we're going to be announcing and choosing the winner at the very end of the webinar after the Q&A. So be sure to stay for the webinar so that you have a chance to win that. We're going to randomly select one person who's still here at the end. So that's an awesome prize, and we congratulate whoever wins that. And then now to introduce Joshua. Joshua Waldman is an authority on leveraging social media to find employment, which is fantastic. I know we are all eager to hear how we can do that. He's the author of Job Searching with Social Media for Dummies, and his writing has appeared in Forbes, Huffington Post, Mashable, and the International Business Times. Also, Joshua's career blog, CareerEnlightenment.com, won the About.com Reader's Choice Award for Best Career Blog of 2013. So that's definitely a site that you're going to want to check out. When he's not writing, Joshua presents keynotes, trainings, and breakout sessions around the world for students, career advisors, consortiums, and professional organizations, and that's why we're all here. He's very nicely agreed to present to us today as well. And for more information, as I said before, please visit CareerEnlightenment.com. And you can learn all about Joshua and techniques for your job search and more about his book, Job Searching with Social Media for Dummies. So welcome, Joshua.
Thanks, Bree, and welcome everybody for today's webinar. Really excited about the content today. A lot of it's refreshed. I'm going through a second edition right now, a writing process for the For Dummies book, and so there's just a lot of research that I'm putting into the book that I get to share with you here today. So it's really exciting for me to bring this out to the public even before the book gets published. So it's an honor, and I think that you'll find the content here very actionable. And hopefully my goal by the end of today is to make sure that you have very, very clear next steps for looking better online and for getting employment. Bree, I just want to make sure that you can hear me okay, just to check.
I can, yep.
And you can see my screen.
Yes, it looks great.
All right. Good. I want to start off by telling you a story. You know those moments in life that you're just so proud and happy? It kind of feels like a dream. It can't be real. That's exactly how my wife and I felt when we moved to Portland in 2009. We moved into our first home. And though we quickly realized that we had quite a lot to learn about home ownership, I think that the bulk of our lives together were lived in apartments, other people's houses. We didn't know much about what it was to own a home until a couple of months go by, but I'll get to that. Because one of the most exciting things about owning a home for us, it was a sweet, sweet surprise. Something you probably just take for granted, and that was an indoor washer and dryer. Because we had just moved from Las Vegas, and it's pretty hot there, and most apartments had detached washing rooms. So we finally had our own indoor washer dryer, so we were totally, totally thrilled. Except 3 months go by, and then the dryer stopped working. and it was taking 2 or 3 cycles to get clothes dry. It was so bad, I remember hanging clothes on my office door, the back of the couch, dining room chairs, because it's raining or snowing in Portland when we moved. In fact, my wife joked that we should probably put my socks on the dog and have him run around and make it dry faster. But I think what was really frustrating for me was not knowing what was going on. So one day I got fed up, made that call of shame that a lot of guys fine, hard to make, and that was to the repairman. 2 days later, he's standing in my living room asking me questions, deducing the damage to the dryer, and after a minute of silence and thinking, a smile spreads across his face and a knowing look. And I think to myself, okay, so it's probably something very complicated with the electronics, with the brand. He walks over to the dryer, reaches over, and to my horror, he removes the lint draw. And he peels back a lint brick the size of my boot. And it was felted solid. So by that point, I'm completely embarrassed. It's so obvious, right? I mean, who forgets to remove the lint? But we had for 3 months. So, of course, with a look of pity and a shake of his head, he hands me the bill for $50 and leaves me to stew. You know, and it's something that you use all your life. You use a dryer, the washer, your whole life. Yet I still miss something so completely obvious. So really, today isn't really about teaching you anything revolutionary. It's really pointing out where those lint bricks are that might be hiding for you when it comes to finding a job, and in particular, when it comes to finding a job online.
That is an awesome story. I just wanted to pipe in and say.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone can relate. There's something that, you know, you have thought of everything, and you call the expert in, and you go, oh, of course, why didn't I think of that?
It's 20/20 hindsight. It's amazing how easy it is to just oversee those things that are so close to you when it's so simple, you know, and it's missing. And so, you know, for me, it's sort of this metaphor that those small little things that we forget to do can have a really, really big impact on your life. It's such an apt metaphor for me because it's so true online, you know, and the price I had to pay for an oversight like that for you was wet clothes, but the price that someone looking for employment has to pay is, well, maybe missing out on that dream opportunity.
Absolutely.
So, and that's why this content is so important, and it's not going to revolutionize anything. We're not really going to teach you anything new, but it's really about pointing out those little things that are going to make that such a big difference. So there I am being exasperated in Oregon. So I want to play a numbers game with you guys real quick before we get into the content. So we know this from statistics that are out there right now. Recent statistics: 78.6 Americans use the internet. This is from a Pew International study. And of those internet users in this country, 69% of them use social networking sites. Okay. So if we know also that 118 people compete for every job, we can use those numbers to deduce that only the 63 people who are going for those jobs are using social media. So in other words, it's about half. What this means to you is that just by using social media a little bit more strategically when looking for employment, it actually doubles your odds of getting hired. It's that simple. And the question is, those other people going for the jobs that you want to go for who are also using social media, do you really think that they're using social media strategically? Probably not. They're probably not on this webinar, or they might be, and then you're in trouble. But they're not really thinking about how they're using Facebook and LinkedIn with a methodology that's been proven to work over and over again. And that's exactly what we're going to learn today, because just using a little bit more savvy in social media and how you represent yourself online can turn these dismal employment statistics that we hear about in the media every day, can turn them to your benefit just by taking advantage of these social media use statistics. So in the next 45 minutes, I'd like to show you how to do this. People who have followed the advice that we're going to go through in today's webinar have had some really amazing success. Just real quick, I want to tell you about Jeffrey Smith, because it's just an amazing case where he was in a workshop I did and had been looking for work for 6 months. It was really frustrated, and he actually said to me, this is a challenge. He said, LinkedIn isn't working. And so for me, as a social media specialist, that that means, okay, prove to me that LinkedIn works. And so we rewrote his profile together, and actually a week later, he had 17 inquiries. So those are the kind of results that happen typically, yes, typically, when tweaking these small little changes in our profiles. And just so you know, there is a lot of content to go through. We've got about 45, 50 minutes together today. I'm going to try to get through as much as I possibly can so you have concrete steps to take. But just know at the end I'll also show you some ways that you can further the education. You can take the next step, go a little bit deeper, and really bring your online presence to the next level. So earlier I said that using social media actually doubles your chances of getting that dream job. And there's a very specific reason why, and that is that hiring has fundamentally changed since, even if you were looking 5 years ago, it's absolutely different. A lot of that, I think, had to do with the 2008-2009 economic downturn, as it's so cozily called. Certainly didn't feel that cozy when I was going through it. A lot of the people who have gotten let go during those years were in HR. They were recruiters. And what ended up happening was that, hiring managers had to do their own recruitment. And that meant that they were not trained in recruiting process. They were probably using things like their network to find people and to bring them in. And they also didn't have budgets. They didn't have recruiting budgets because they were line managers, right? And they were accountants and salespeople. And so paying for job boards was very, very expensive for a lot of companies during that time, and so they stopped. In fact, job boards have fallen. I don't think they're going away. But I think that they have fallen from being a primary source of employment opportunity to something more like networking, and in particular networking online, because LinkedIn has reached the 200 million professional level, which is immense. It is the de facto place to go when looking for employment. And I can tell you from my own experience over the summer, I was hired by an organization here in Portland to develop a curriculum. And I'm lucky enough in my business to be too busy to teach a class every week. I travel a lot, and so I also didn't want to let go of a possible business opportunity, so I decided I would hire trainers to implement the curriculum that I developed for this organization. And so I became a recruiter, and I learned very quickly that posting on job boards didn't get me the results that I had expected. I had a lot of spammy resumes, and as a business owner, it was very difficult to go through those. And what I wound up doing, something that I actually make fun of recruiters for doing, actually works, and that is I just went to LinkedIn, typed in a couple of choice keywords, and literally I had 4 results, made 4 phone calls, 2 were hired within the next couple of days. So it works. It works amazingly well for companies, and as a job seeker, someone looking for employment, it makes sense to use the tools that employers are actually using. And it's not just me having that experience. The Society of Human Resource Management said that about 95% of recruiters and employers, hiring managers, are using social media, in particular LinkedIn, to find talent. So it definitely is a huge sea change. That has happened. In fact, I feel sorry for folks who have been not searching for work for the last 5 years, entering into the work search right now, because it's a total culture shock. It's a total culture shock. Now, of those recruiters who are using social media to find talent, about half had to reject people because of things they found out about them online. That shouldn't surprise anybody on the call, I think. Also, when you're out there reading about, and we're going to talk a lot about profiles today, but we're also going to go beyond that. When you're reading about tips and advice on social media and the job search, like LinkedIn tips, what do you put in this, what do you put in that, how do you optimize for keywords, all of these things that you'll probably read about on blogs. Well, that's sort of like profile-itis. That's what I call it, because it's sort of this misplaced focus on profiles. It's good to have your profiles, but if you look at the screen capture, which is no longer available, these kind of statistics, this is from a couple of years ago, A network of 880 primary connections can very quickly lead to over 11 million tertiary connections. And that's just an amazing scale. So if you really think about it, it's not your profile that's as important as the people who you interact with and how you interact with them. And we'll talk about how to do that today, just a little bit. First, I want to talk about personal branding because it's very difficult to give you advice on what to put in your profile and how to talk about yourself if you haven't yet figured out what that personal brand is. Now, as a pet peeve, I don't like the term personal branding, so I'm going to rebrand it. I'm going to call it personal positioning. I remember speaking at the American Marketing Association last year in New Orleans, and I asked a group of 50 marketers what their definition of branding was. And after the fifth totally different definition, we kind of moved on. Branding is just such a nebulous term. It can mean anything. But positioning is very specific. Positioning is what makes you different from everybody else. And being able to articulate that is particularly important when you're getting online because, like we talked about, those link bricks are those little ways that you talk about yourself, those little tweaks in language that might not seem like a big deal to you can actually have an enormous impact in how employers are engaging with you online. And by not thinking about, this is a danger. This is actually a picture of Mark Zuckerberg. The bottom right-hand corner is, of course, next to the beer, is a hash pipe. You can no longer get this picture on Google. He cleaned it up. But here we have, a very powerful man with an online presence that could be detrimental to his investors. Being inconsistent online, having a resume that feels different than your profile is such a red flag for recruiters, employers. They're looking for, because they know that people lie on their resumes. And there's already such a low trust level on the internet that your job is to be as consistent as possible, as reliable as possible, and have a message that makes sense across all of the whole spectrum of where you are online. So you don't want to be in the maybe pile by being inconsistent. And that means stepping into the shoes of the recruiter, maybe Googling yourself and seeing what comes up, or viewing your profiles and your communications, pretending like you're from the outside, seeing what those public profiles are looking like. So the first mistake, and this is going to surprise people, right, who came here to learn about social media and technology, but the first mistake has nothing at all to do with technology. It's about your brand. It's about figuring out that message before you actually sit down in front of a computer and start typing away at those profiles. And I've got to tell you yet that the way that these social networks are designed is to make it so easy. You sign up, it takes you as short amount of time as possible. They engineer it to be fast. And then to fill in your profiles, your bio, your headline, upload your pictures, they make it so easy. It's in their best interest because they'll have a bigger network. But it's not always in your best interest to do it that quickly. And to take a little bit of time means to think about that message that you have. There's really two parts to your personal brand. It's the who you are part, right? When you pick up a personal branding book, and there's a lot of great ones out there, which I could recommend to you at the end of the call if you want. Most of them focus on the who you are. What are your values and passions? How are you the best? How do you talk about the results that you've had? Very, very you-focused or I-focused, right? But there's this whole other dimension that is very often overlooked, and that's that a brand isn't going to make any sense to anybody if it doesn't resonate with their needs. It's got to resonate with their needs. And when you bring these two things together, that indeed is your personal brand, because you might be creative. Here's a great example. You might be creative. That's a value you've elicited when you've done these personal branding exercises. But if you're trying to get a job in utilities and you're creative, well, you're going to have to be more than I'm a creative professional. That might work in the marketing industry or in particular marketing firms where they really highly value creativity. We'll talk about an example of that. But in this particular company, maybe it's an electric company, right? They need a little bit more than I'm creative. Maybe they need to hear that you're creative in developing green energy programs, right? Now you're addressing one of their needs, which is to increase adoption of wind energy because they make a little bit more money when people opt in to pay a little bit more on their energy bill every month, right? So we'll talk about how to go into each of these one at a time. Now the first one is about you. What are your goals, passions, drives, ideals, inspirations? All of these things really align with who you are. And here's the funny thing. There's always going to be someone more qualified, more educated, and more experienced than you in the job market. So the only thing that's not a commodity here is you. A lot of people think that being professional means not having a personality, taking out the personality, when in fact actually the more personality you bring to the table, the more you'll be able to differentiate yourself. So we don't have time to go into this here. My books do talk about values elicitation, either the For Dummies book or the workbook, which we'll talk about later. But just know that bring yourself to the table is very, very important to do, and we'll get into some exercises that will wrap this all up together. Now the second part is understanding their problems, right? Their needs. Have you ever had this experience where you bought a car and you see the car everywhere after you bought it? Now one of two things happened, right? You either, for one reason or another, there's more of these cars in the same year, the same model, the same color, all of a sudden. But more likely, something happened to your brain that made you primed to pay attention to this particular type of a car. And that's called your reticular activating system. Everyone has one. If we didn't, we'd be insane because we're bombarded with billions of bits of information at any given moment. And so this is a filtration system. It says, okay, this is important and that is not. And everyone's walking around worrying about their problems. Whatever you say that addresses their problems makes it through that filter. And so they're actually going to be more likely to pay attention to you. That's why doing your research before you start filling out profiles is so, so important, because when you write those profiles, you're going to be writing copy that actually resonates with people and gets into their brain. It's right into their brain. This is just good psychology. A great place to start your research is at the industry level. Check out a website called AllTop. It stands for All Topics, and it's actually human-curated news across hundreds of different industries. So no matter what industry you're in, I'm sure that you're going to find articles here. What they actually do is they find the top stories per industry based on the top blogs. So you can actually go in here and see what is going on, see what companies are struggling with right now, see what industries are going through. And all of this information is going to feed into your personal brand, because you can take this a step further and actually do the research within LinkedIn groups that are industry specific. You can check out people on LinkedIn who are working at your target companies and actually start to reach out to them. And I'll give you some scripts to use at the end of the call that you can actually plug and play and start to get those conversations with folks right in the company that you want to work for to figure out what the problems are so that you can craft personal branding messages. All right, this is all very Portland, Oregon, woo-woo, nebulous stuff, right? All kind of heady spiritual stuff. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty, and that's, we're going to focus primarily on LinkedIn today, but just keep in mind that that your profile picture on LinkedIn can be analogous to the same one you use on Twitter and on Facebook. So a lot of the principles we're going to talk about today are going to map across all of the social networks that you're accessing. We have such a limited time that I wanted to focus on the highest leverage tool today, but just keep in mind, and I'll try to point out places where this is true, that you can translate the concepts that we're going to talk about to other social networks. Okay? So just to give you a sense, this was a iTrack survey done a couple of years ago now. It's a little bit old. You can see that the LinkedIn profiles don't look like this anymore. But I think that the concept is still very valid, particularly with the conversations that I have with recruiters on a daily basis. The areas that are in red are where the eyeball spends most of its time. Well, check out that big red spot right where the headline is, where the picture is, and then as you come down the page, you can see most recent position, and then coming down the page is time spent on the summary. We're going to talk about these three elements of your LinkedIn profile today. and how to really use them to stand out and make that difference. Because it's very likely your first impression is going to be online, and it's very likely that's going to be on LinkedIn. First, let's talk about headlines, because you can see from the heat map, I'll go back, you can see that's the biggest red spot. Okay, I just want to make sure you can see that, how clear that is. The headline is so important, hands down. So let's get your headline looking good right away. And this is these are two extremes I want you to avoid. The first extreme is Satish. He's just using his job title. You guys can see that pretty clearly. There are a million senior software engineers out there, and there's probably, if you're going for a senior software engineering job, there's probably 90% of the people going for that job have that in their job title. So how does that actually differentiate him? Well, the answer is it doesn't. It doesn't at all. So just having a job title, kind of boring, right? It doesn't differentiate you. Now, I'm not saying not to use a job title. You do want to have your job title, but I'm saying that's an extreme that you want to avoid, is to just have a job title. The next extreme is Joseph Becker, who, by the way, can you guess what his job title is? It's very hard to know. As a recruiter, as an employer looking for a marketing director, I'd have a very hard time knowing what Joseph is up to, what's his job. So here's an example of someone who got really creative and avoided the use of his job title. Also not such a good idea. So you want to have a combination of both. You want to have somewhere in that headline an actual description of what it is you do. So maybe it's senior software engineer. Then maybe he can go on to tell the value he brings to the table, what makes him different, what success that he had, an ideal that he holds that would resonate with a company. Okay. So mistake number two, we're getting into the nitty-gritty here of social media, is to make sure your headline is not just your job title. It's got to be a little bit more, but don't get too creative. You know, you guys have all been to networking events where you heard of the, I don't know, the accountant who's the plumber for your finances and fix the leaks. You've heard all kinds of these crazy creative things. You don't want to go there either. You just want to be down to earth and demonstrate your value in your headline. By the way, you only have 120 characters here, so it's very hard to do this. It's very hard to do this well. Let's talk about the summary section before we get into the pictures. The summary section is very important. It's a way of elaborating who you are. So they've read your headline in the first 120 characters of prose, but now they want to learn a little bit more about you. And I've got to tell you guys, if it's too long, and now there's some LinkedIn trainers out there who say, you know, you've got 5,000 characters in this space, use them all up, and I don't think that's necessarily the best approach. I think there's a medium here. You don't want to keep it blank, but you don't want to go on and on. And this is an example of someone who just goes on and on. He's not really communicating anything here in this summary, except that he really uses a lot of training budget when he goes to work. This one's a little bit better. It's short. It's to the point. This is a senior software executive's summary right here. And I think that it shows a little bit more value and captures the essence of who this person is a little bit better. So the third mistake here, if you're taking notes, hope you are, is please don't ramble on in your profile summary, but also don't leave it blank. Now the problem here is that writing about yourself is really, really, really hard. When I was writing the book, the For Dummies book, 360 pages jam-packed with lots of great actionable content, and then I couldn't write my bio. Couldn't write 2 paragraphs about me, about myself. Writing about yourself is really hard. That's why there's a whole industry of resume writers and career coaches, because this stuff is really hard to do. So I want to offer a 4-step process for getting started with your profile summary. Okay, and all you have to do is answer these questions. And actually, I'm going to ask you guys to get out a piece of paper and a pencil right now and answer these questions for me. Because at the end, we're going to go through these 4 questions, and I'm going to ask you to pop in. If you want to do some live coaching, I will have Bree read them to me, and we'll talk about what you wrote, and maybe you can get some benefit from the tips that we talk about during the live session of this call. Okay, so the first question I'd like you to answer is, who are you? When you walk into a room, you say, hey, my name is Joshua, right? But here, now we're online, we don't have to say, hey, my name is. It's already on our profile. So we're going to start with, I'm a. So for me, it might be, I'm a social media strategist specializing in helping job seekers find the jobs of their dream. For you, you can use this, I'm a ... specializing ... to answer the question. You could use any formula you want, but answer the question of who are you? Who are you? Very, very important to get this very clear right off the bat. Now, the second question I'd like you to answer is, what do you do? What do you do in the context of the problems you solve? So let me give you my example again. When job seekers find that their resume isn't getting them the results that they want, I show them how to use online tools to get into the companies that they'd love to work for. Notice the problem here was that the job seeker is struggling with getting results from a resume. Now, if you really pay attention to these first two questions, you'll see that when you go back, think back to what I talked about in the personal branding, personal positioning section, that this is the you and the them spheres overlapped, right? The you is question one, who are you? The them is, what problem do you solve? This is question two. Question three is very hard for a lot of people because talking about what makes you the best is, it goes against our social conditioning. When we were growing up, we were told not to brag. We were afraid talking highly of ourselves would alienate us from our peer groups, and so we've become humble. I remember when I've always been humble in an idiosyncratic way, I guess, and I remember my grandmother telling me when I was very small that I wasn't yet good enough to be humble, which might sound harsh, but actually it's very wise. And that's a lesson that I've learned over and over in my career. When I first worked at Cisco, I had a very big success, and I wasn't telling anybody about it until finally my boss called me into the office and sat me down and said, look, there's 50,000 people working here, and you're not going to get anywhere if you hide under your desk. You got to ring your bell. So I really challenge you to think back to a success that you've had in your career and to talk about the role you had in that success. I really challenge you to do that. Spend some time with us. And the last one is part and parcel of any good marketing, which is, what do you want? What do you want them to do? This is the call to action. Okay. So if you're looking for a quota retiring salesperson, if you're looking for a detail-oriented accountant, give me a call, send me an email, get in touch, whatever it is. So here's a quick recap, and then we'll hear what you guys have come up with. I love this part of the presentation because I get to learn about you. So who are you? What do you do and the problem you solve? Okay. Why you're the best? What makes you different? This is positioning. And then what's the call to action? Okay. If you guys want to pop in your answers in the chat section, I'll give you, Bree, I guess we'll give a couple of seconds here to see if folks are going to pop those in, and we could hear about who's in our audience.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if everyone wants to, you can put them in the same area that your questions go into also, and I'll be able to see all those. All right, we've got a couple coming in here. Anybody else want to pop their answers in? Oh, here we go. So we have Gary here. So his answers are, my name is Gary. I'll leave your last name out just in case. I am a persuasion specialist that focuses on solutions that resonate with my clients. I challenge common perceptions, then develop and integrate unique solutions that are balanced and beneficial for my clients. I am an award-winning sales professional with the skills for increasing revenue and forming lasting customer relationships. And then call me, I'll leave your phone number out there, to exchange ideas on how to find customers and keep them.
Great, Gary. Yeah, it's very, very clear. What's not clear for me is what industry you're going after. The word solution is used a lot, and I'm wondering if you might be able to unpack that a little bit by actually talking about the problem that is solved. The solution supposes that there's a problem. if you can articulate that problem, I think you'll find that folks reading your profile are going to resonate a little bit more with that. But it's excellent. You had all 4 of the elements in there. I definitely have a better sense of who you are and what you can do for me, and I love that call to action. So thanks so much, Gary.
Cool. And then we have, if you have time for one more, we have David. And David says, I am a certified public accountant licensed in Virginia that emphasizes accountability and transparency. I build effective relationships with a wide array of people and entities that interact with the organization I serve. I thrive in a service-oriented environment where diversity, constant learning, change management, and challenges are routine. My creativity and enthusiasm yields effective results with managing financial, compliance, and operational reporting. And that's David.
Great, David. I'd love to hear you enumerate what those results were. I'm so curious. I'm really impressed with this. I'm so curious with you that I'd like to hear what results your creativity and your values have helped to solve for your organizations. And don't forget, call to action at the end.
Yes, yeah. Even when I write blogs for the FlexJobs blog, we're learning to put in calls to action for all of them, asking our readers to do something next.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, a good one to put out there, too. This is from Don. For question number 1, he gives his name, Don, and then I'll leave the last name out. For question number 2, he's an investigative accountant. For number 3, he has many years of experience with successful outcomes. And number 4, he's looking for contract work from law firms.
Okay, that's very clear. Yeah, good call to action. Just remember that who you are is not your name. Who you are is when you walk into a networking event, you shake hands, you make eye contact, you say, hey, I'm Don, and then what? That's the and then what. That's what goes into that first part. But I really like that call to action because it's very clear for me that you're looking to get into law firms, into legal. And so as a networker, now I know, okay, so if I want to refer Don, I'm going to think about lawyers or law firms that I can refer him into. So thanks for sharing. Bree, I think that's it for time.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'll take a look. If you guys have popped them in there and I haven't had a chance to review it on the call, I'll go ahead and take a look after the call today, and if I have feedback for you, I'll get in touch. So the question I want to ask you is very simple, and that is, would you ever show up to a job interview naked? Chances are your answer is no. And sometimes I ask this question, and the answer is, it depends. But let's assume that your answer is no. Well, obviously it's a lead-in for the next question. If you wouldn't show up to a job interview naked, and you know that your first impression is very, very likely to be online and to be on LinkedIn, why wouldn't your profile be complete? Why not? It really is sort of like showing up naked. Recruiters, hiring managers, employers are not new to LinkedIn. They've been using it for 6, 7, 8 years. They go to profiles and they know instantly if that person has spent any amount of reasonable time filling out that profile and making it accurate. So this is a real easy one to implement. Just get yourself to as complete as you possibly can. And I think that one of the cool things, a very little known thing about LinkedIn is that if you are the more complete, the more full your profile is, actually you show up higher in search results. So that means when I was looking for a trainer for the curriculum I developed, people who had more complete profiles were actually showing up higher when I was searching for that keyword. Okay, so you want to be in that first page of search results. Let's talk about a picture. Let's talk about that picture because it is so, 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 so important on any kind of online medium. It is expected to be there. If you don't have a picture, it's like going to a dating site and looking for tall, dark, and handsome, or tall, skinny Scandinavian bikini model, whatever, and there's no picture. And so what happens to your trust level? It just goes down. And it was already low to begin with because the internet already has a low trust level. So without that picture, you're really not even playing ball, period. Get that picture up there. Here are some examples of good pictures. I told you earlier about someone who is creative going into the creative industry. Well, check out Brooke Snow, a lot of you are looking at her picture and saying, that's not professional. Well, actually, you know what? This picture got her a job because she wanted to work at Wieden and Kennedy, and one of Wieden and Kennedy's core values was playful creativity. And I don't know about you, but this picture is very playfully creative. If you've seen Portlandia, there's an episode about Wieden and Kennedy, which is pretty funny. They're throwing rubber chickens at each other, playing video games on bouncing balls. So it very much was in alignment with the culture of the company she was going for. Again, it just is a testament to the fact of how important it is to understand your target company. Pam Slim is a coach. Look at that chin on palm of hand posture. It's very much about attentiveness and listening. And then Abhijit is a little bit more traditional. You can see, though, that there's negative space around his head. You can see his head is tilted and that the space around his head is uneven. Which is very appealing in photography. There's a nice, warm, welcoming smile. This was a professionally taken headshot, and I could tell instantly that it was. Okay? Anybody can. Don't crop your face out of vacation photos or whatever. Get a nice picture taken. It really goes a long way. So don't look like an axe murderer online. That's an easy one. If you need to invest $100 on a professional headshot, do it. Really, it's one of those lint bricks that when you take out, you'll find an amazing result happen to you. I can tell you, we're running out of time, but I can tell you countless stories of pictures getting updated and opportunities starting to flood in. On the new LinkedIn profiles, which are getting rolled out, I think most of you on the call probably have the new ones, but you can start to include multimedia. You can include video, work samples, pictures, links to various other websites, slides with SlideShare integrations, other things like this, TripIt integrations. Take advantage of this because the more you can demonstrate who you are and the quality of the work that you can perform, the more trust they're going to have for you as a candidate. Now, keep in mind that hiring somebody is probably the riskiest business investment. Friends of mine who run businesses have told me this over and over again, that the biggest cost to the business is people, is paying those salaries. In fact, I had a friend who runs a marketing agency here in Portland, and he had an employee who was very lazy and didn't do anything, and she quit. And because of her performance, they lost 5 very big clients, and they almost went out of business. So it's very risky hiring somebody. And so your job is to reduce that perceived risk. And there's no better way to do that than to use work samples and do that through the media features that are now available on LinkedIn. So take advantage of that. People who are not are leaving money on the table. Seriously, find slides that you've done in the past, work samples, documents that you've written, papers that you've written, anything to get up there to show who you are and the quality of work that you're going to start off with. I don't know about you, but networking freaks me out. I'm an introvert, believe it or not, and I have to force myself to go to networking events around town. Now, I enjoy it while I'm there. It's not like I don't like people. I love people. I enjoy it while I'm there, but there's a sense of foreboding to get myself out of the house and into the car. And I don't know if you can relate to that. A lot of people can. Some people are extroverts and they love to go to networking events, and that's fine. You know, whatever it is. But I think that one of the most common mistakes is people not actually getting away from their computer or using their online profiles to create deeper, more intimate relationships. So that means using your profile to take the conversation offline, right? You can have endless email back and forth with Twitter and messages on wall posts, on timeline posts, on Facebook, or even on LinkedIn. But really, those conversations are not going to be moving you forward until you can take it to the next level of intimacy. So the pyramid of intimacy is something like, you know, it's online, and then maybe that's a phone call. Can we get on the phone for 5 minutes to have that conversation? Maybe it's the next level up is making eye contact over a cup of coffee, you know. That's what this is all about. And social media does not replace this. It augments networking. And that's a very popular misconception is, oh, we'll just use social media instead of job boards and it'll be as impersonal. Well, the thing is that job boards are very safe, right? You go, you click apply, you're done, you wait, you might get a phone call, you probably won't. Networking is very scary because you're putting yourself out there, and social media makes that even more augmented. It's like a power tool. It's like using a power saw instead of a hand saw, right? And so that means that it might be uncomfortable doing this, but when you do, you're going to find amazing results. It means you have a nice-looking profile. You go and you find someone working at a target company, and you can say to them, look, I'm very interested in this company. I don't know if there's an employment opportunity or not, but I'd love to learn more about your experience. Would you have 5 to 10 minutes to take this offline and have a phone call? Right? Very easy to do. Most job seekers who are struggling, making progress to find employment, are failing in this step. This is the third step of the model, okay, that I'll go over in just a second here. So mistake 7, leaving those online relationships online. Take them offline. Those are the 3 most important words you can use. Let's take this offline. Okay. So just a very, very brief recap. We talked about positioning. That was personal branding, branded as positioning. Who are you? Because how could you fill out profiles when you don't know how to articulate your value, right? How can you fill out profiles if you don't know how to articulate your value? You got to do this part first, okay? Do this part first, then this next part, polishing off those online profiles, is going to be a cinch. It's still hard. I'll give you that. Writing about yourself is hard, but it's going to be a lot easier when that value proposition is clear. Once you have profiles as a platform to stand on, then when you're reaching out to folks for information interviews or potential hiring managers, taking those conversations offline, you're going to have a higher response rate because your online presence is going to compel them to reply to you. You're resonating, your message resonates with them, you're looking professional. Okay? So in a moment we're going to announce who gets a professionally written profile, so stick around for a sec. I just want to let you know that writing about yourself can be really, really hard, and if you would like someone to help you with this professionally, to get yourself a professionally written profile, for the first time, and this is the first time I'm talking about this service publicly, I've been doing this privately for a while now for list subscribers who are asking for help. So mylinkedinprofilewriter.com, you will see a video where I talk about the benefits of actually having a keyword-optimized, professionally written profile delivered to you, and I can do this in 48 hours. Okay, so that means that you go ahead and place the order. You basically send me your resume. You answer about 4 questions, what it is that you're looking for in your career, in your life, what are your outside of work interests, that personal branding statement that we talked about. You send that over to me, and myself and my team of writers who I personally trained with the techniques that I've spent a lot of years figuring out will write up your new LinkedIn headline, your new summary, all of the elements of your profile that really a lot of people struggle with. We'll make sure there's no spelling problems. Within 48 hours, you get that document back and you upload it into your profile, and the results just start happening overnight. It's that lint brick. It's that bringing in that repairman. Yeah, I had to pay $50 for the repairman to come into my house and pull out the lint draw, something that seems very simple, anybody can do, but I didn't. And you know, those obvious things can be very, very hard to uncover. So check out my LinkedIn profile, mylinkedinprofilewriter.com. We're going to take questions now. We got 10 minutes to take questions. And then at the end of the 10 minutes, we're going to announce the winner. So who's on the call? Who's ever on the call is going to, one of those people is going to actually get a LinkedIn profile written by my team. Okay, so that's a $300 value, and we're going to send that over to you. Now, if you were to move away from this webinar and Google LinkedIn profile writing services, you'll see most of them out there are around $300. This one's just $147, so it's just a killer deal. As an author, as someone who sees people struggling finding employment, it really irks me that people who need this service the most either don't know it exists or can't afford it. So I've gone out of my way to make this affordable and to really make the quality of the work very, very high, so that's guaranteed. If you guys do want to grab a profile from me today, by the end of the timer, in the next 9 minutes or so, if you do get a profile from me on my LinkedInProfileWriter.com, I will personally send you a copy of my latest book, which is the Social Media Workbook. And this book really is it's the answer to a lot of questions that come up with, how do I do my values elicitation? How do I come up with a personal brand and a value statement? How do I translate that online? How do I interact with people with companies that I'm trying to get in with? All of those questions are answered in the Social Media Job Search Workbook. It's a step-by-step guide that will help you really find employment. And it's done really well on Amazon. It's been a top 10 book under job hunting since it was released just 3 weeks ago, and it sells for $39. If you get a profile with me in the next 8 minutes, I'll send you a copy of this just as a thank you. So with that, if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Bree?
All right, yeah, we definitely have some questions coming in. A couple people have asked about filling out your LinkedIn profile. If you've been unemployed for the past couple years, which a lot of people have experienced, how do you fill out your profile in a way that sort of, showcases your previous experience without highlighting that big gap, or how do you overcome that gap by using your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, there's a funny cartoon I have. It's someone at a job interview, and the interviewer says, "Could you explain what you were doing between 1989 and 1999?" And the guy says, "Yeah, I was on tour with the Grateful Dead." I think that what happened was during the tech boom in 2000-ish, before the bubble burst, it was very common for people to stay at jobs for a short amount of time. And so what happened as an employment trend during that period was that it was now okay to be at a job for 6 months or a year on your resume. Whereas before that, it was kind of a no-no to have such short times at companies. And now that's a trend that's kind of common. You see resumes out there that, you're at a job for 6 months to a year, and that's pretty status quo. Now, what happened during the economic downturn is that there were a lot of people who were left unemployed for a very extended period of time, and a lot of those people started their own businesses, whether internet businesses or brick-and-mortar businesses. And a lot of small businesses fail, and we don't talk about that. A lot of them succeed, and we laud that. I think what has now become the status quo is that we do have gaps in our resume, and it's very acceptable for those gaps to be attempts at self-employment. I think also with corporate culture trying to encourage entrepreneurship within the walls of the corporation, that it's also okay to admit to that. For example, a lot of new technologies and innovations out of Google, which is the leader in this kind of forward-thinking management theory, that 15% of your time spent on doing something else. Start a new concept, solve a new problem, whatever, it doesn't matter. That kind of internal entrepreneurship is very important. So when companies see that on your resume you might have a gap of unemployment, that's not as big of a deal as it once was because of what has happened in our economy in the last couple of years.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Another question that someone had is about the pictures on your LinkedIn profile and how it's really important to have a picture and not just that kind of gray head existing as a cartoon on your profile. But the question is that is it really important to have a picture of yourself if there's still sort of gender discrimination concerns or race discrimination concerns in the workplace? Is there an alternative to having a picture that is actually of yourself? Is there something else you would recommend?
No, there is no alternative. Not to be harsh, and I absolutely accept the fact that there is race, gender, religion discrimination happening. It happens right now, age discrimination in particular. And, in my family, I had an uncle who lied about his age for years because he was afraid of getting replaced by somebody younger. Yeah, these are realities we all face. Also, demographic statistics on LinkedIn reveal that only 2% of LinkedIn is black. So there are race issues going on here as well. What I would say is this. Number one, if you're worried about discrimination on a class that you represent, protected class that you represent, think about two things. First, if the company is going to discriminate on its candidates, right, is that really a place you want to work? They're clearly ignoring OFCCP compliance issues. It's a culture it's a poisonous culture that you don't want to have anything to do with. So it's almost like a self-filter. If that picture is going to turn away certain companies, good riddance. You know what I say. The other issue is there are certain stereotypes that can be associated with age or race or sex that can be addressed head-on. You know, for example, with age discrimination, the negative perception of age is that you're going to be overpaid and stodgy and inflexible. So you know you can combat that by talking about your lifestyle, having a picture that shows young style glasses and young fashion, a warm, friendly expression, you know, that kind of counterbalances what any negative stereotype might be on that. So it's like, oh, okay, this picture doesn't really fit into my stereotype of someone who's over 50. Who is this person? And that can be recast in a positive light. In a lot of cultures, age is a very positive thing. It's a symbol of wisdom and experience. And companies go for older workers. So it's just a matter of how you frame yourself in the picture and how you talk about yourself online. It all fits together. So you need a picture to play ball. Just play ball well.
All right, and now that we have 2 minutes left on the timer, a couple people have said that they were wondering if there's a coupon code that they have to enter on your site.
No, there's no coupon. It's already discounted.
Oh, okay, so the discount is already there when you sign up. And then a couple people are saying that the video is playing, but nothing else is happening on the site. Any advice for people when they go to
Yeah, you got to wait. I timed it. I probably will change that. This is all very new. You've got to wait about a minute into the video, and then that order form will pop up.
Okay, cool. So hopefully that'll clarify those questions.
Yep.
A couple people have asked if we have time for one more question about if you're changing careers on LinkedIn, how can you kind of translate your previous experience onto your LinkedIn profile in a way that appeals to the career you want to go into?
Yeah. So you are who you say you are. If you're a chef wanting to be a psychologist, I'm just using a crazy example. If you're a chef, you want to be a psychologist, and all your past experiences are, chefing, cooking at restaurants. Well, that can present a challenge. So what you need to do is find transferable skills. And instead of calling yourself an ex-chef trying to be a psychologist, you can just call yourself a psychologist. Use the present tense for the future aspiration. In other words, I'm a chef today. Maybe I'm working in a restaurant. I've got my master's in counseling, and I want to move on. Well, I can just tell the world I'm a counselor, even though I don't have that job yet. No one's going to stop you. And it's not lying. As long as you can identify those transferable skills in the way you talk about yourself, then you're fine. So try to, and it's going to feel a little incongruent. I definitely understand that. There's beeping.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, transferable skills are a huge piece of that. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh, and now we have the winner.
So yeah, what do you think? Shall we call
a random selection from our attendees that are left, which we have quite a few actually. Most of everybody stuck around. And
yeah,
our
thanks,
lucky
guys.
winner today is Stacy Harshman. So Stacy, you have won a professionally written LinkedIn profile from Joshua, which is valued at $100. Congratulations, Stacy.
Stacy, go ahead and send me an email, and I will get in touch with you on what the next steps are.
Yep, and Stacy, I have your email also from your registration, so I can connect you guys as well.
Great.
I'll send you an email with follow-up notes. So congratulations, Stacy. And with that, thank you very much, Joshua, for your information today and for sharing everything with us, and also for your great offer for our registrants and attendees. And for more information, of course, go to careerenlightenment.com. And for more information about FlexJobs, visit FlexJobs.com. Thank you very much, Joshua.
Thank you, Bree.
All right, and thanks, everybody, for attending. We hope this really helps your job search, and best of luck with your job search.